Let's start off the show tonight having a look at this story around Golriz Ghahraman. Of course, we did say this when we looked at the charges, that she would not get jail time, and that the legal fraternity was saying when when the charges were laid out, that as a first-time offender with what she's doing, she's very unlikely to get jail time. She didn't get jail time, so of course the right wing now has to say that that's obviously a bias in the system and favoritism and a two-tiered justice system, as opposed to anyone else who would have done exactly what she's done wouldn't be getting jail time. So, but she did get a criminal conviction. She was looking to get the charge discharged, but they chose not to do that. Criminal conviction, and at some stage, I guess it was today probably, because I think the sentencing was today, she managed to sit down with John Campbell for a full conversation, which you can see on TVNZ+. Let's play you a little bit of a clippet from the interview.
Golriz, it's lovely to have you here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I guess we should start with the question that everyone has asked over and over and over since January, and that is, what the hell were you doing?
And actually, I'm one of those people. I've asked myself that well before January, and I'm as baffled as anyone. I just know what it feels like, which is just deeply shameful and distressing. I can now put it into context because I have, a psychologist's report and various experts, and I've had time to process. But I think first and foremost, it's, for me, it's the shame of doing something that harmed others. What the hell was I doing?
Do you know better now what the hell you were doing?
People ask me this, and it's like, it wasn't to get a little bit of joy, because there was no joy, and it just felt like it was just shame the whole time. But it was like, you're this person, and in my mind it was, I don't know, I think it was something tangible that I could point to go, there's something wrong with you.
And why on earth would somebody who is an MP, who is a law graduate, who has so much to offer the world, self-sabotage?
I mean, again, with time and processing, I can put it into the context of a long period of being in quite a dark place and trying to be strong constantly, be strong, turn up, be strong, feeling not strong, and then doing that spiral of, you're not good enough, there is something wrong with you, why aren't you strong enough? But I guess it was, the self-sabotage was to get out. And if I'd actually sat down and processed the fact that I needed to get out, I would have done things differently. And that is my great regret, like to have actually caused other people stress and harm because I couldn't stop and go, well, actually, if there's something wrong with you, get help or quit, which is what I should have done.
It's really, I find that quite interesting because I know that there are going to be some people who kind of poo-poo what she's saying, of course you had control. And let me not go deep, but just reveal a bit about myself. As someone who struggled with addiction, well, I think it's going to be for all of my life. I was just having a conversation with someone today, and my addiction issues around food, okay? And for people who then roll their eyes and go, fat people addicted to food, just stop eating. The way I would describe it is I, through my life, have treated food exactly like an alcoholic treats alcohol. So if you look at the patterns and behaviors, it's the same. Like, it's the same. And I had a conversation just today with someone talking about when you're in the midst of an addiction. Now, this is not what Golriz is talking about, but talking about how you know in your mind you can or can't do something, but the actions still happen. That I would be, I don't know if I've ever told this. Tell me if I've told this to you. The worst I was ever like in my throes of addiction, is I would leave central Auckland, drive down the Northwestern motorway, stop at Point Chev, go to McDonald's, get like a double Big Mac full meal, eat it, get back on the motorway, drive out through Avondale out to New Lynn, stop at McDonald's, get a full meal, get back in the car, go home to dinner, and have to eat it because it's a secret. You can't reveal to your wife or family that you've just done these things. Now, I knew in my head that I wasn't really even hungry, and I knew that I'd begin dinner when I would get home, and I have no idea. Like while I'm stopping, going, I don't need to stop. Yeah, but if you don't need to stop, that means you can stop because you know you don't need to, and if you didn't want to, you wouldn't. So it's okay if you do. You know, I could give up if I want to. That kind of vibe. People who say that typically can't give up. They've just convinced themselves that if they wanted to, they could give up. So on some layers, I kind of understand this idea of not knowing why you're doing something that you're doing, and literally while you're doing it, saying I shouldn't be doing this, then you still do it. So I'm not saying I get it for Golriz, but I get it for that headspace of I don't know why I stopped twice on the way home to eat a full meal. I didn't need to. And while I was doing it, I know that I was, especially at the second stop, I wasn't hungry to do it, but I still did it. And I don't know why. So I kind of feel a little bit for her and kind of get the idea of going back to my worst days, going, yeah, I can understand how the head doesn't always line up with what your actions, even though the head's telling you these actions are wrong, Chewy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. This is such a multi-layered thing, and I've seen a lot of comments, both pro Golriz and her, that are coming at it from a point of view from someone that has a fully functioning, working brain.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a slight on someone that is going through something. The brain is a fucking mystery box that, like, your brain chemistry is off. You do shit that doesn't make sense. So for someone to go, I don't understand why an MP on an MP's wage goes to a high-end boutique and takes clothes that she could easily afford.
Yeah.
That's a rational thought process. What her brain's doing is not rational. This is someone that is going through some stuff.
Mm.
You know, it's the classic self-sabotage. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if these things that she's done were almost like an out-of-body experience, whether there was part of her brain screaming at her going, what the fuck are you doing? And it just happens anyway.
But I mean, like, that's what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying about my experience with my behaviors.
It's not rational.
But it's the same. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing it whilst you're doing it? I mean, obviously, I've never committed a crime or anything like that, but I understand how the brain can be going, why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this. This is ridiculous. You don't know to be doing this while you're doing it. I understand that completely.
And it could have been shoplifting. It could have been speeding. It could have been any one of a number of things. It's almost the brain going, you know, I want to feel something.
Yeah.
I want to feel a rush. But bear in mind, like, there's been a lot of stories about the abuse and threats that Golriz has faced in her time as an MP. She came out publicly that she was suffering from a long-term debilitating illness. So she's been dealing with that as well. Like, just because you're an MP doesn't make you not a human. And it doesn't mean that you endlessly bend without breaking.
Yeah.
And then there's the people that are coming out, and again, this comes from a rational point of view of, like, you did a crime, there needs to be a punishment. And especially when you are in a position of leadership. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But what I think in the case today, in the sentencing, the judge has been really clear on it. She hasn't been discharged without conviction.
Mm.
So she's a lawyer with a theft conviction now. She's a public figure, and all of this is played out in front of us. She has lost her job. She will struggle to get anything with any sort of profile now. And she's in an even darker place.
Yeah.
I'm sure the people who rallied around her, and I absolutely hope that she's getting help. But I think the people that are going, she should be thrown in prison, even for a nominal period of time. It's like she's paid back the places. She's got a fine. She's paying court costs. She's got the conviction on her record now. She's lost her job. The fall from public, what's the word? Fall from grace, I guess, very publicly.
Yeah.
That needs to be taken into account as well. We can't have a go at the right for going crime and punishment, crime and punishment, crime and punishment, and then turn around and look at this and go, yep, jail time. I think it's a fair sentence. I think if she'd been discharged without conviction, that I'd be going, I think the judge has been very considered on this. And I think the way that Golriz has played this, she has stayed quiet and stayed small through all of this. She copped to it. And this is the only interview that we've seen, and I think it will be the only one we see.
Yeah. And look, I think some of the stuff you were just talking about, there's another kind of 2 minutes or so of this to play. We'll play the end of it because I think she goes a little bit into a diagnosis she's been given. And I know that I'm not playing the story I watched on One News tonight, but the story on One News had the judge talking about, I've seen some of the death threats and rape threats and stuff that you've been receiving. Not a mitigating factor to stop it, but a consideration amongst the overall sentence and the vulnerable state that maybe this person was in. And I know people are going to go, well, vulnerable MP, lots of money, hyper. And it's like, no, vulnerability can come at any level, and I think if you have credible death threats and threats of sexual violence against you constantly, that could make anyone vulnerable. So let's play the last couple of minutes of this and see what else is to be said about this before we move on.
Where did the trauma come from?
The trauma, so now I have this I've sat down and done all of the diagnoses, and I now have a diagnosis of, and to quote the report, which is extremely confronting if you ever have to read your own mental health report, extremely severe post-traumatic stress disorder. There's two places that comes from. One for me is the violence of my early childhood in Iran, and then the other bit is politics. We all know that racism exists and prejudice exists, but the sheer volume of it and the level of violence in it was not something that I expected. And at first I had that response of, this is fine, you get to fight it, but it just keeps coming and it keeps coming, and it's violent. The threats are of rape and physical violence,
Was it a case of somebody who was repeatedly told they were shit, behaving like shit?
Well, I certainly was telling myself I'm shit in my head. I certainly was very angry at myself and disappointed at myself for feeling not okay and increasingly feeling like weak. And I just really wanted to punish myself, I guess, in a really stupid way.
It's the stupidest thing, isn't it?
It's the stupidest thing. It's like, it's...
And I don't mean to be rude or make light of it, but you were a shit shoplifter.
You
were really a dismal shoplifter. I mean, Scotties, cameras everywhere, small room, people looking at you, you're wandering around.
I was in there for like 40 minutes. It was like it was bizarre behaviour. And
there was no way you were going to get away with it.
No, but that's what self-sabotage looks like. It's not like you want to get away with it. I mean, I don't know what I took. It's not like you're going to get anything out of, it is sabotage, but it's sabotage that hurt others.
And there you go, full interview. There was another part of that, and I don't think it was in that, but we're talking about feeling better, and she was talking about how nothing she did made her feel better, and I don't know. I understand that some people, I actually understand that some people are going to roll their eyes, because I sometimes think about my own kind of mental health journey and think about, I look at the triggering factors for stuff that I've been through, and even I roll my eyes going, can I really think about that kind of stuff that happened in my childhood that affects me as an adult or not? And I kind of go, even I'm not that comfortable about using it as an excuse for me, but every health professional I've always talked to kind of goes, no, maybe you should give that a bit more weight. Pardon the pun. And food addiction.
Look,
wait. See what I did there?
We have circled around this issue multiple times on the show. New Zealand is shit at mental health.
Yeah.
We don't give ourselves the grace to sort of go, well, look, maybe some of these things have, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm good. And then your brain hates you at the end of the day. Like, your brain is, it's not a reliable narrator. It's not giving you the best information all the time. And I can't even comprehend, like, I've been told snippets of what has been sent through to her office in the past.
Mm.
And there's a fact when she had a security detail that would rival the Prime Minister's security
same as the PM.
detail.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of threats that she was getting, the content of threats that she was getting. And that's just the ones that were coming into the office and that sort of thing. Let alone, and you can just go out and find some right now, comment sections that involved Golriz were vile. It was like wading through sewage. People really hated her. And it was just, for someone that she wasn't a party leader. She was up there with the Greens, but she's not the one that's always fronting stuff. But there was something about her that really set people off. And it's hard to look past the fact that she's a foreign-born, refugee, brown woman on the left.
Yeah.
And it was just that's the perfect storm for a lot of people. That's blood in the water. And how many MPs have we lost from that? How many talented leaders have we lost that have got to that point? And how many talented leaders in the future is it going to cost us when people look at the experiences that people like Golriz have had and gone, you know what? It's not worth it.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think the message that's out there for people that are having health crisis, mental health crisis, how will people react to the fact that I mentioned that I had PTSD? And they look at the comment sections and see how people are reacting to someone that has a long-term illness and PTSD, and how's she being spoken about at the moment. And they're not MPs. They're just talking about their friends or their workplace or that sort of thing.
Do you know something else? Something else that I've just thought. So the example of a significant mental health breakdown on the right would probably be Todd Muller. And I don't mean that. I'm not throwing that at him. Isn't it? Now, this might be a bit of a long bow, but isn't it funny when it's a, white middle class conservative man has his mental health breakdown, able to, do stuff and get back along. If it's a brown left-leaning woman, and I'm thinking about Kerry Allen here as well, who have their mental health breakdown. I guess, to be fair, I guess the outworkings of both Kerry Allen and Golriz were more significant, involved crimes. But it does feel like the right are very keen to jolly along the mental health of Todd Muller and, good. But when they don't see it packaged in a way that's, shall we say, family-friendly, there's no grace for it.
Yeah. I will cop to something here around Muller, I should say. I remember when he pulled the pin.
Yeah. Tory Whānau, another one.
Yeah. When Muller pulled the pin, my first reaction was to laugh, because it was just ridiculous that someone had put himself up, had folded so quickly. And then I took a moment, because it's extremely public. You put yourself up there, the leader of the opposition, potentially the leader of the country, and then you fold like a stack of cards.
53 days as leader.
Very publicly.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, no, I don't feel so good about that anymore. You know, it is, we might be a ridiculous little country on the arse end of the world, but a leadership role of an entire country and everything that comes with it, you know, it's a step up from being just a guy holding a portfolio, or might have an electorate seat and that sort of thing. It's, you know, I think I keep coming back to the fact that for the longest time, New Zealand has not had a good record on mental health.
Yep. Rugby racing
a lot
beer.
of our problems.
Rugby racing beer, we don't look back.
Yep, exactly. Like I think about the generation of people that came back from World War II completely broken, and it was just like, yeah, back to normal, mate. Get a handle in your hand. Go home, terrorize your family, just keep it to yourself, sort of thing. And
6 o'clock
we've gone
closing.
through,
Get those
we've gone
last
through
two
all
down.
of this stuff. Stiff upper lip, be staunch, that sort of thing. And, and when it comes to politics, this nastiness that has come through, I think the people that are having a pile on Golriz, you know, Kerry Allen, Tory Whanau, God, you say them in a row, you can certainly see it, can't you? There are
three of these things are not like the other.
Nasty fucking things. And like on the left, like, yes, we need to look at ourselves as well and police the language that we use. Like, and I want people to sit on that a little bit and just consider it. Like, we're not immune to it either. We're quite happy to make jokes and that sort of thing. Does it have the same nastiness that we accuse the right of having? Honestly, I'm just going to leave that question out there.
All right. While you leave that out there, let's get to a few chats, because we're going to move on to our drag queen suing Tamaki next. Mr. Arvids has said late fee, not really, switching from phone to PC. Oh, there you go. So not really late fee. Frosty's giving us a late fee. We're going to do that at the end though, Frosty, because that's an interesting question to wrap the show up with. Drunk Greg Sailor for $5. Thank you for that. Surely with Nicotine Willis's tax cuts, she'll be rich enough to avoid the dress next time with the $1.49 extra she's going to get in her bank balance. Sure. And there's a couple more, I think. Stunt says late fee. There you go. Thank you, Stunts. Appreciate that for the super chat. And Campbell says, yeah, very generous, Campbell. Thank you for the super chat. I'm a victim of mental health myself. I don't understand self-sabotage, but I know and acknowledge that it is real. Acknowledging is something New Zealand is yet to fully grasp. Yeah, that's interesting, Campbell. I think that's probably the same for some of the stuff I was just saying. I acknowledge it's real, but it's pretty hard to understand it or accept it for yourself. But when you see it in often when people are harsh on themselves, I often say that. I say, if this was person XYZ in your life, would you be being this harsh on them? And they always go no. It's like, well, just, give yourself a break. Treat yourself as well as you want to treat other people. That's an adage we should all hold on to, because we tend to treat ourselves about as bad as we'd treat our worst enemy normally. Are there any of those chats in there, that super chats that you want to get to?
Yeah, I just want to make also one other little comment. Does anyone realistically think that Golriz is going to go on a shoplifting spree ever again? Well, when we're talking about crime and punishment and that sort of thing. Again. I'm just going to rip through just a lot of you guys gave some feedbacks here. You've got to give it to her. She's accepted an interview which exposes her to public backlash. She's remorseful. Media focus on this case is somewhat disturbing, while other far more harmful white-collar crimes receive little or no attention.
Yeah. I mean, hang on. We'll be fair. Any politician, any high-profile person that had done what Golriz was done, it would be the same attention. It's probably more got the attention because of the profile of the person, but you're still correct, just to be fair.
Yep. Dave Monster says, I'm a lefty and I feel some jail time, even 3 months would set an example, and that's for everyone.
Well, I wouldn't set an example if the previous 50 similar convictions hadn't got one and she had, because then the example would be out of the norm. You know what I'm saying? Like a similar crime committed by someone else, the legal fraternity was all saying wouldn't get jail time. So that is already an example that's been set. Now, if we're saying that example is wrong, I think starting it with Golriz would then look like a politically vindictive, motivated decision. So,
Yeah. That's why you have judges. That's why
Yep.
judges do the sentencing, because they take everything into account. And I
Although
think
this
in
government
case-
is trying to stop them taking as much into account as they can. They're trying to stop them having leeway, trying to get them to check boxes. But yeah, we'll look at that another day.
and judges don't always get it right. But in this case, I think, yes, the judge was correct.
Yeah.
Mueller later says a very good interview. John pulled no punches, but was emphatic, maybe empathetic. Golriz was honest, humble, and open. Zach here says should be on the bling. She was an MP as an example, so an example should have been set. Same with Kerry Allen. Look, this is exactly what they're talking about. There were consequences, and yep, they may not have got jail time, but you can't say that they got off scot-free.
And look, this is what it is for me. They shouldn't have an example made of them that would be harsher than anybody else. Neither should they be let off with something that other people got sentenced for. What they should get sentenced to is exactly the same as any non-profile person would have got in that case under those circumstances. And for both of them, they did. Right? For both of them, that is the case. So actually, people are saying they should have made an example of this person. That would be outside the realms of what would normally happen to a person in those situations. So it wouldn't be an example. It would be an outlier. So we don't want to do an outlier. We want it to be consistent. And if it was Joe Blow from 111 Main Road, Tikawiti, who had done exactly the same things in exactly the same circumstances, and with no criminal background, he wouldn't get jail time. So consistency is more important than examples, is my thoughts.
Yeah. Nick here says, I'm sorry, I don't believe her. This sounds scripted. You don't get something for the sake of doing it. You don't do something for the sake of doing it. There's a chemical response in the brain that you want and to get it. And look, again, this is coming back to what I say, coming from a rational point of view with a working brain. I think it is semi-scripted, because she's been talking about these things in court and a therapist, and now it's a TV interview. So this is someone that would have been rolling this around in their head ever since it happened months ago.
Yeah,
and
just
I
a couple
think
more.
That's what you're picking up as a scripted thing.
Yep, a couple more because we've got to get moving.
Cool. I get the self-sabotage. It's a cry for help. Sounds like self-harm to me.